This is a Mets here. For all your Mets here, let's go. Bring it home. Bring it home. Bring it home Make it happen. There's no stopping us now. We're gonna do it again. It's not a question of how. It's just a matter. It's just a matter. It's just a matter of
Hello again, everybody. Joe Piscopo, Shea Stadium. The big story. Mets 86. Exciting, thrilling, awesome. Let's take a look.
do it. Do it. We got the teamwork to make the dream work. We got the teamwork to make the dream work. We got the teamwork to make the dream work. Ooh, we got the teamwork to make the dream work. We're gonna make it this time. We're gonna take it home.
All right. What's up, Met fans? Welcome back to Talking Mets here. Rob, how is everybody doing on this day before the Christmas Eve? Happy holidays to everybody that's in the stream right now and everybody who might watch later on in the evening or tomorrow or the next day. Hopefully everybody is staying warm, especially if you're on the East Coast. Basically, the entire country is somewhat cold, so it's kind of insane in the Northeast. It is raining and cold. In the South, it's cold. It really doesn't matter where you are. It's cold. So make sure you stay warm, you stay safe, and hopefully you have some good holidays with family and friends. So with that said, before we get anywhere started with the topics on the corner, on the side of the screen that you see on the side over there, let's just talk about what happened with a former Met today, Michael Conforto, who signed a 2-year, $36 million deal with the San Francisco Giants. Yes, all indications are he will pass a physical, because the Giants might look to 2013 when Michael Conforto was in college and saying he broke his toenail and they don't know if he can, continue to play at his level because of that toenail. So, yes, the Giants are going to be the running laughingstock of the league. Again, the Giants necessarily, it's not their fault with Judge, But it's clearly their fault with Carlos Correa and giving him a little bit of space to sneak into that door and head to the New York Mets, right? If they were concerned about an injury from 2014, it's just stupid, especially when it hasn't come up in his career at the major league level. And again, they were trying to get out of that deal because let's be honest, guys, Carlos Correa is a really nice player. You put him on a team like the Mets, it makes a tremendous amount of difference in the lineup. But if you were to put Carlos Correa in the San Francisco Giants lineup with the lack of free agents they brought in and the trades they did not make, how much better would they be in a division with the Padres and the Dodgers? Not that much better. And I guarantee you that the Giants got cold feet, especially the top executives and probably the owner said, listen, there's no need to spend $350 million on this guy when there is no way that we're going to beat the Padres and the Dodgers with just Correa and a bunch of misfits, right? And that's the whole thing when it came to the Giants. I guarantee you that was the case. And again, we heard the stories. Correa was getting ready for the press conference that morning in his hotel room. Him and his wife was looking for a place on a house in San Francisco in the Bay Area. So it's not like he wasn't ready to sign that deal. He was perfectly fine signing that deal with the Giants. But again, and this is why Steve Cohen is a great owner, because he, at the end of that signing area where the Giants were going to sign him, that he slipped in with an offer of 10 years, $300 million. And it left a little bit of thought in probably Boris's head. If there was anything that messed up this deal, no matter what it is, or held it up, Correa was going to back out of the deal, because guess what? If the team that you're signing with, that you had a handshake agreement with, gave you that contract, and let's be honest, guys, the medicals go around Major League Baseball. A lot of teams know about almost every injury that a player has, right? They don't know the exact detail of every injury, but they knew before they even talked about an offer for Carlos Correa. They knew every injury he had from the minors all the way up from yesterday. Just the physical was just going into more detail. So when that fibula injury that he had in the minors is not even remotely a problem. Like if they would have brought up the back and they were concerned about the back, I think some people would have been like, all right, we get it. You know, maybe they really were concerned. They didn't want to go with that type of number and price, and for a player like that, even though he's a really good player and a clutch performer in the playoffs, he's not going to really do much for the Giants to put them over the top in the NL West. It's just not going to happen. And it's okay. And if they would have been the backs, I think most people would have been like, all right, we get it. You know, you can be scared off by the back, because we've heard about that for years now with Carlos Correa, even going into the free agency prior to last season. But with that said, Correa did have his physical. All indications are that there is no issues at all with the Mets physical and Carlos Correa. It seems like everything's going well. A couple of tweets were saying that it probably will come out that it's official probably tomorrow, even though, you know, it is Christmas Eve. It's basically set in stone that it's probably done, like the physical and everything. It's just they got to sign the paperwork. It is Christmas. It is the holidays. So, you know, people are with families and everything like that. I don't think the Mets told Carlos Correa to stick around for 5 hours, 6 hours to sign all the paperwork to his contract and all that fun stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised that it could be it could be official tomorrow. You'll probably hear it. And then Monday, it would be 100% official. Like, you know, the physical was passed. You'll hear it tomorrow. Monday, it'll be completely official that the Mets have signed Carlos Correa. And then Tuesday will probably be the press conference. The press conferences, I remember they always used to be on a Tuesday, like middle of the day when most people are at work, like around 11, 12 o'clock. And that's probably what they're going to do. So nobody's going to have to worry. I know me and Joe has been talking about it. Joe's a little bit nervous about the whole thing that it's not official yet. But again, the Mets are not going to go far down this road and do what the Giants did. The Giants very quickly has become inept organization. I mean, just look at the Giants Twitter. Just look at it, SF Giants Twitter. You can just see the fans how pissed they were. Like they knew it was a bailout by the team. It wasn't a Correa issue at all. You can't go back to a 2014 injury and make it seem like that's the problem. Like that's just stupid. It's a cowardice way of doing something. And I hope you guys saw on my community page about yeah, I mean Mendick he's got options, Walter. He's got options. Mendick, again, he's a depth piece that just in case anybody gets hurt, especially a backup infielder, you can bring him up. So he's going to probably be in the minors for sure as a depth piece. So that's something there. So with that said, Correa's physical, it's pretty sure that it's probably going to get announced that the physical, he passed his physical. Again, Monday will be the official quote-unquote sign-in day. And then Tuesday they'll have the press conference with the jersey and all that stuff. And there's a pretty good chance that it's going to be he's going to be wearing number 4. So that's something that we can look into, especially if you want to buy the jersey. And that's why I put the poll up there. What jersey would you like? And yes, Mendick did tear his ACL. He's not going to be ready until like May or June. So he's pointless at this point. So let's get back to the other news that everybody was hoping for. And that's James McCann get a trade to the Baltimore Orioles. Happened a couple of days ago. The Mets got a player to be named later, basically a bag of balls, depending on, sometimes you might get a little bit of a player that's like, oh, okay, player to be named later. Maybe you'll get like a AA arm or something like that. I'm assuming the Mets are going to ask for an arm in the deal as a player to be named later, just to put a little pitching depth in, or add arms to their farm system that they're lacking, especially at the top end of their farm system. So they might ask for something like that. And it was needed. Again, that's why when it came down to the James McCann situation, it's hard for the Mets when they were a couple of players over the 40-man roster limit. They had Yohan Lopez got sent to, I think, Japan or something like that, Korea. So he's off the roster, and now McCann's off the roster. So the Mets had to get the roster to 40, and that's something that they're working on, and that's probably the reason why they're working on the whole roster situation, because, and probably why the Correa deal is not officially official, is because of the fact that the roster still has to get situated before they can put Ed Correa to the roster. So could it be another move? Yes, we'll see. But I don't think there's any concerns about Correa and his physical. And then, of course, McCann is gone. Everybody is happy. So it's pretty sure. And it's basically almost a guarantee that Omar Narvaez is going to be your starting catcher, which I'm not shocked about, because you're not going to pay that type of money to a catcher to bring in when you have James McCann at $12 million. You're giving $7.5 million to Narvaez for 2 years. So he's not sitting on the bench. So Nito's going to be a backup, and Narvaez, who is a better defensive catcher than Nito, even though Nito's very good, and he can hit decently as well. He's not going to be a world beater, but you know what? He'll put the bat on the ball. He'll give you some pop, and you don't have to worry about him behind the plate, and he works well with the rotations. That's it. Perfectly fine. So that's something that the McCann issue is solved, signed, sealed, and delivered. Get him the hell out of there. That's number 1. Number 3, Hendriks State. Is it still possible? We were talking about it the other day that, the White Sox, they still like McCann. Could you put McCann in there with Vientos? Well, now we heard, I don't know if you guys seen, but only recently that all of a sudden the White Sox are asking for Ronnie Mauricio in that deal for Hendriks. Now, some is probably going to say, no, don't do that. But if you put Eloy Jimenez in that deal with Hendriks, then I can think about it, because once again, guys, you signed Correa to 12 years. You have Lindor at shortstop for 10 more years. So the two positions that you could see Mauricio playing at the big leagues is taking over for the next 10 to 12 years. So Mauricio can't play there. You're not moving McNeil, even though you can move him to left field and figure out a way to put Mauricio at second base. You can do that, but I don't think the Mets are going to do that. You're not going to mess with your batting champion and throw him in left field. And yes, you can do that, but, McNeil, I think he can play wherever you need him to play. I don't think it's an issue. But you saw last year with McNeil, he goes 100 miles an hour at all times. He will run into a wall, run right through a wall to catch a ball. He has no limit of trying to get to a ball and doesn't care about his body, about getting injured. And that's what I worry about with Jeff McNeil. Jeff McNeil is a lot safer at second base, because when he plays the outfield, he's reckless. He's good, but he's reckless. He will, again, run through a wall to catch that ball, and that's why we love him. But, again, with Mauricio, now that you have Correa at third base, Beatty is basically possibly your left fielder, or you're going to platoon him with Canna and now be a lefty-righty for your left field there. When there's a righty on the mound, Beatty will play. When there's a lefty on the mound, Canna will play. That's something that you would just have to do. And Beatty is basically the guy left. And again, where you put Mauricio? The Mets very, very slightly put him in center field in the minors for, I believe it was early spring training in the backfields of spring training, because I remember, because I was there when they did it, and I was like, oh, that's Mauricio. And again, it's not easy to play the outfield, especially center field. Again, if you're an infielder all your life, it's not easy to go to the outfield. And I have that from experience. Again, I'm not a major leaguer, but I played high school, I played college. And when I played third base most of my life, a little bit of second, but I played third base most of my life. When I had injuries, when our team had injuries in college, I got stuck in the outfield because, well, we ran out of players and outfielders because it was that bad. It is not easy. The angles of the ball, the depth perception of the fly balls that are tremendously high. It's not as easy. I'm so used to the pop-ups being right over me instead of me moving around in the outfield. It wasn't easy. You start running after the ball in the outfield, the ball starts bouncing. If you played baseball, you understand that. When you're running, it's a skill to try to keep your head as balanced and don't move your head too much while you're running, so the ball won't bounce, so you get a better ball to hand ratio when you're trying to catch a ball. It seems scientific, but it kind of is. So it's not easy. And I know these guys are world-class athletes, but when you played it all your life and you grew up playing shortstop in the infield, it's hard to just move him out to the outfield and think he's going to be okay. And again, where are you going to move him? You're going to move him to left field? No, because you still got Beatty blocking him. You ain't moving him to center field because you got Nimmo for the next 8 years. And right field, yeah, I guess you could try him there, but you still got Marte for 3 more years. So he's not going anywhere. So again, if you can get a guy like Hendriks, and if you can throw in Jimenez, which again, Ken, I agree. That's why I want to keep Beatty. That's why if I have to trade Mauricio to get Hendriks, I'm doing that trade. Because why keep that asset when he is basically wasted away in the minor leagues? Again, if he's going to be a star, let him be the star in the White Sox. Who the hell cares? It's like you're sending him to the Braves or the Phillies or somewhere in the NL East or even in the National League. You're sending him to the White Sox on the south side of Chicago. And if he becomes a star, the Mets will sign him in 6 years. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's not that big of a deal. And no matter if you like Mauricio or not, I said this 2 years ago when I started this channel. I said, and this is when the Mets didn't have a lot of spots. Oh, they had spots available to move Mauricio out of shortstop, and they still didn't do it because they wanted to keep his value. The reason why they moved him to third base was because they're like, all right, we can put him to third base. We can, throw him over, Beatty to left field if necessary. But as I said last stream, Beatty, I think, is going to be a better overall player than Alvarez. Again, I don't know if Mauricio is going to be a better player than Beatty. I think Mauricio has more of that star level talent. I think Beatty's going to be really damn good. I think Mauricio has the potential to be a superstar. I think Beatty can be a star. And I think that's actually possible. And no, Mike. Second is Correa's not going to be more productive at second base. All right. He's never played there. He's played third base in a World Baseball Classic once in a blue moon. I think he played it like 10 times in his career at third base. He's never played second base. So don't play that game. Again, people just think you could just move to second base and you're not going to have any issues. Do people remember how much trouble Trey Turner had at second base when he got traded to the Dodgers? He had tremendous amount of trouble. It's not easy pivoting and turning double plays and knowing your cutoffs and everything like that. It's not as easy backing up certain plays. It's a lot more going on when you're playing second base than when you're playing third base. Trust me, I know. It's playing third base. I can tell you right now, I hated second base. You had to do a lot more. You're more active. And with a platinum glove, you want that glove at third base. There's a lot of balls that skimmed through third base last year that Correa probably could have had. So, yeah, I understand that, Mike, but that's a shift. He wasn't playing second base. Again, you can put him at second base, you'll probably be fine. But again, when you're playing the shift, even that is not the most easiest thing to do either. And, he's a stud. But again, you're not moving McNeil. McNeil's been fine. Stop moving Jeff McNeil. All right. You keep on moving Jeff McNeil. You stop putting so much pressure on Jeff McNeil. There's no need to. No need to. It's excessive at that point. It would be Correa could be fine at second base, but at this point of his career, he's a shortstop, and I'd rather have him at third base, where you got guys that whole left side of the field. It's going to be very hard to get a ball past those guys. Leave them on the left side. McNeil is fine at second. He established himself at second. Don't move him. And that's something. And then when we're going back to Hendriks, I know we're getting way past that, but we're going back with Hendriks. And again, if you want to ask questions, guys, please leave it until the end, around 6:40 or so I can just catch up with the questions. So I don't want to miss questions when he said it like 10 minutes ago. I don't want to miss it. Yeah, but Mike, it's not like Correa is going to be. I mean, how many times third basemen have to go deep into the outfield to cut off a ball that was hitting left field at the wall, and you need that arm as well. So again, it's not like McNeil was bad. Charlie C, thank you so much. Charlie, I don't think so, buddy. I do not think so. I think the Correa signing basically put Alvarez in the minors, personally. And again, if they get rid of Ruff, if they trade him for a bag of balls, maybe Alvarez will be that DH guy. But here's the problem with the DH spot. If you're going to leave Francisco Alvarez as your DH, you're telling us that it's pointless for him to catch at this point, because the whole point of him being the number one prospect in all of baseball is the aspect of, yes, his bat, but also he's going to be a catcher. All right. That's the whole point, right? You can't be the number one overall prospect in baseball and be a DH. It's not going to work. Great. You can hit 40 home runs, but again, when Navarre's contract is up and Nito's gone, where's your catcher? I would rather have him in the minor leagues. You don't need the bat as much in this lineup with Correa now, because you can move Escobar to the DH spot. He's a switch hitter, lefty righty combination, and that should be fine. Correa lengthens your lineup so much that Alvarez isn't a necessity. The reason why we were going hard with Alvarez as being possibly the everyday DH was because we didn't have that right-handed bat that we can trust. Correa, you can trust. That's why Alvarez needs to be in the minor leagues right now at the moment to work on his catching game. Because at any moment, if one of your catchers get hurt, you need Alvarez to step in there and go in there without any complications. You can't have him thrown in there, throw him to the wolves and has no idea what he's doing behind the plate. That's concerning. And that's why I think his bat's going to be fine. I'm not worried about his bat. You have to worry about him catching. You can't have a number one overall prospect and have him be a DH for his whole career. Because if you keep him as your DH, he's not catching. And before Narvaez, I thought the Mets were going to make Nido their starting catcher, DH Alvarez, and once or twice a week to give Nido a couple of days rest, you would catch Alvarez. But that's still not enough work that he needs that catcher. He still needs a lot of work. And I'd rather have him in the minors for as long as you need him there. If there's an injury, you bring him up. That's it. And I think there's no room for Alvarez at the moment, especially with the roster right now, with Ruff and Vogel back there, and Escobar is probably going to be your everyday DH. Well, there's not really a spot. You're not going to carry three catchers. So, again, with Hendriks, the latest news was the White Sox like Mauricio. I feel like that could be the missing piece of that bullpen. And now you got two closers at the back end of your rotation. So if Diaz has to go 3 days in a row, Buck is not going to have to worry and be like, all right, Hendriks, you got the next 2 games. You know, that was the big concern last year. Even though the Mets won 101 games, there was a lot of times Diaz pitched 2 or 3 days in a row. And now we had to decide. Well, we had no idea it was going to be the closer that day if the Mets had a save situation. Like, is it Ottavino? Is it Lugo? Is it Drew Smith? Early on, it was Drew Smith. And then he fell off and got hurt. And now it was Lugo and May at one point. And then it was Ottavino. Hendriks could easily step in there. You know, if you got 6 games in a row where you have save opportunities, you can't throw Diaz 6 days in a row. Again, that might be very unlikely, but it's possible. At least you got that backup plan and Robertson as well. You know, so again, if you get Hendriks, you got Rayleigh as your lefty specialist. So it's not the end of the world if you do not get Chafin. You know, you can get Chafin and be like, hey, and get Hendriks. And now it's like, holy Christ, that bullpen is elite. And I think it's already very good. I already think it's already set up to be better than last year. And, you know, people kill the Mets bullpen last year, but the ERA was not bad. They were a little better than middle of the pack last year in overall ERA in the bullpen. So that's not bad at all. Yeah, MB, yeah, you see with the I think it's set because I honestly think if you were really going to go get because the only position that could be used right now, if you're gonna move Beatty at some point or you're gonna throw him in the minors in the beginning of the year, was sign Michael Conforto and platoon him with Canna. You know, that's the only thing I can think. So I don't think it's gonna. I mean, you can get Profar as depth, but again, you got to look at the roster. What's on the roster already, right? If you're gonna use Beatty in left field, you're gonna have you're gonna have your fourth outfielder, right? Or you're gonna have a platoon situation, or you're gonna start Beatty over Canna and put Canna as your fourth outfielder. You know, you're gonna need, Canna can play center field if you want to give Nimmo a day off. I know that's not ideal, but you can. Right? So, you really don't have a backup center fielder. So that's something that you might have to worry about a little bit. But, Guillaume is going to be your utility guy. I'm trying to think right now. Could you use, Escobar can also be that guy if you want to play Vogel back one day to get him started a little bit and throw Escobar at third base one day to give Correa a day off, because you always want to give these guys days off. That was a huge problem last year. Me and Ken talked about it a ton. They played Lindor and Alonso way too much last year. There was no need for it. You had a comfortable lead in the middle of the year where you could have gave these guys a day or two off the field, like completely a day off, not just DH and not on the field, just a day off. They had the opportunity to do that, and they didn't. And when it came down to crunch time and the Braves started to catch up to us, it was almost impossible to give those guys days off. Days off. And that I think that hurt them. I think you wore those guys out. I don't care how young they are. I don't care how much in shape they are. You play 158 games and you barely get days off. And the only time Lindor got days off was when he got hurt. When he got his finger caught in the door, right when the West Coast trip was about to happen. That was the only time he had days off. And Alonso, when he didn't play first, he DH'd. So I think it's very important. And odd villain, yes, absolutely. That's a good call. Versatility on the bench. Last year, the Mets had that early on before Guillermo went down and Jankowski got hurt. They had a very versatile bench. And that I think that's the big reason why the Mets had a really good season last year, especially in the first half, and why we were top 3 in runs in the first half, or at least the majority of the year, because of the fact that you had the versatility where you trusted those guys. When you want to give guys days off, you throw them out there, and the Mets were still winning. That was a big deal. People didn't really talk about that. They talked about the bullpen. They talked about the lack of power on the offense. Yet the Mets were top 3 in the league in runs, almost a little bit more than the first half of last year. So that's something that I think is important to look at as well. The versatility that the Mets had, the utility guys, where Jankowski can play right, left, and center. Guillermo can play everywhere in the infield except for first base, right? They had that. In a real pinch, Ruff can be your backup first baseman. Yeah, but you can. But the Mets, and that's why people just, when people talk about the Mets needed more power, true. But you can also get a 20 home run guy, another 20 home run guy, which Correa is. But you need a run producer. That was the problem with the Mets. It wasn't the power, because they had no problem getting guys on base. That wasn't the issue. But after Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso, what was the main problem? The main problem was getting those runs in. And you don't just have to hit home runs to do so. But we counted on Lindor and Alonso to hit those home runs. And when they did it, nobody else did after Alonso. That was the problem the Mets had. It was the run producer. It wasn't necessarily the home runs. You lent in this lineup. That's why when people are like, oh, you got to put Correa second. I don't necessarily think so. I think you need to put him behind Pete Alonso. Because you look at his career with Correa. He batted at the early top of the order in almost all of his career. With the Astros and with the Twins last year, he batted second a ton. So just think, he had 63 RBIs last year, Correa, in the number 2 spot. If you put him on the Mets in the 5th spot when these guys were getting on base all the time and they couldn't get driven home, imagine him as the 5th spot. He'll easily have 90 RBIs. The reason why he never had 100 RBIs in his career was because he's always at the top of the order. And that, your number 1 and number 2 hitter, if you have 60 to 70 RBIs, that's a hell of a season offensively for a guy who is at the top of the order, batting first or second, driving in that many runs. That means you are clutch, that you drive in runs, even at the top of the order. I think you put Correa at number 5. Don't mess with the 1 through 4. Your 1 through 4 was lethal last year. With Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, and Alonso, don't screw with it. It was really good last year. Don't play games with it. You could put Correa number 5. You could put McNeil 6. You can put Escobar 7th. You can put Canna or Beatty at 8 and Navarez at 9. And Canna, how many times did Canna bat 6 last year? That was your number 6 hitter. A guy that was batting 240 with 15 to 16 home runs. that had his very bad hot streaks and very bad very very good hot streaks and very bad cold streaks. So when you have that, I don't think you cannot mess with the 1 through 4. I think it's stupid to do so. I know Correa is good, but everybody talked about Lindor and Alonso. Marte was the key to the first 4 guys in that order. How many times did Marte come through? Like, it seemed like every time he came through. Just imagine taking Marte. When he took Marte out of that lineup in September, look how different that lineup was. I mean, we were basically throwing anybody and their mother at the number 2 spot. Even McNeil wasn't really good in the number 2 spot, right? Even when they moved him up, because remember, they moved him up when Marte got hurt in the number 2 spot, and that's when McNeil trickled his batting average went down a little bit. Not a lot, but it went down a little bit. Even McNeil said he'd rather bat 6th or 7th in the order. That's where he was. And I think that's important. Yeah, Varsho, didn't he go to the what was it, the Blue Jays, I believe? I think I saw that. I know he went. I know they traded for him. I believe somebody traded for him. I think it was the Blue Jays, Daniel. Exactly, Grant. 100%. What's up, buddy? Yeah, and I don't think your 1 through 4 was so damn good last year. Don't mess with it. I know it's Correa, but the whole point of getting that bat was to get that bat behind Pete Alonso, because those guys, even Pete Alonso, got on base a lot last year. And I was looking at the numbers and I was looking at a lot of the games. Yeah, Daniel, I think that's a good deal. He got power. You know, you needed that bat, and I think it's going to help it a little bit more. You know, you got a little bit more power in that lineup. It's going to be a little bit harder lineup to get through. Good move by them. So I just think that it's important to get that guy behind Pete Alonso that teams are going to be afraid of. Pitchers are going to be afraid. So that gives Pete Alonso more pitches to hit. They're not going to keep on throwing that slider on the outside corner to try to make him reach for it, because they weren't scared of walking him, because they weren't worried about anybody behind him. Guess what? Pitchers are going to be worried about Correa and Escobar batting 5th and 6th, or Correa and McNeil and Escobar batting 5, 6, 7. That's a big difference than what you had last year in, you know, the crap you had in J.D. Davis and Smith and Vogelback and Ruff at the end of the year. And you had Canna, Vogelback, Ruff, Dominic Smith, J.D. Davis, and your catcher that was useless. So that was a waste of a back of the order. It's important to get the guy that pitchers are worried about when Alonso was up. When that pitcher might throw a fastball, a mistake fastball, because he doesn't want to walk Alonso to bring up Correa, who is one of the clutch players in baseball, especially in the postseason. But I'm telling you, if you put Correa at the number 5 spot, he is going to have at least 80 RBIs, maybe more, because he's that good of a player. He's a run producer. You don't hit 60 plus RBIs as a number 1 or a number 2 hitter if you're not clutch. That means more often than not, when actually people get on base. So remember, you're batting 1st or 2nd. That means your 8th and 9 hitters, you know, you're expecting to be your worst hitters. When they actually do get on base, that means Correa is driving those runs in. Because usually your 8th and 9 hitters are, you know, your worst hitters, right? That's just basic common sense. So if you got your 230, 240 hitters, or worse than that, occasionally getting on base, that means Correa is driving those runs in at the leadoff spot or the number 2 spot. So, yeah, Daniel, he had his physical today. Again, there was no alarming news at all. So I'm assuming the physical went well. And they'll probably announce the physical was he passed it tomorrow, just as like a newsworthy tweet or something like that. That's one of the reporters might get. And then I think Monday he'll sign his contract. He'll make it, you know, absolutely official. And then Tuesday will probably be the press conference with the jersey and all that fun stuff. So again, we talked about Correa passing his physical. all indications are we haven't heard nothing of the contrary. We never heard nothing, which is a good sign. McCann traded, which was probably we all knew was going to happen. It's just a matter of where and what could we get back from him. Got a player to be named later. And again, you guys, you can start asking your questions now for the next 20 minutes of the stream. And once again, guys, happy holidays. There can be no streams the next 2 days, Christmas Eve, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you want, whatever you celebrate, give you a couple of days to, enjoy yourself. Don't got to worry about my annoying face for a day or two. And then Monday we'll go right back into getting closer to January, closer to spring training. The roster is basically almost finalized. There might be 1 or 2 more tweaks. But other than that, we're going to have a whole month and about a month and a half until pitches and catches report to talk about the roster, the lineup construction, all that fun stuff. So, again, Hendriks trade, I still think is possible. Again, if I'm the Mets, Mauricio is basically, I wouldn't say useless because you can always use a guy like that. You just never know. But he's not an outfielder. Even if you want to put him there, you still have to put him there in spring training. And I'm just assuming you would want to put him in center field or left field. Well, now you have Canna, Beatty, and Nimmo as your left field, center field combinations. So Mauricio is out on that as well. You're not going to put him in right field because your right fielder needs to be experienced, needs to have a good arm. And yes, Mauricio has a good arm, but again, the whole being in infield all your life and throwing you into the outfield, we don't need a Lucas Duda. We don't need a Dominic Smith experience again. He's got the athleticism. He's got the talent, but you just don't want to. Why make him lose value when his value is at an all-time high? If you need to make your bullpen elite and it takes Mauricio to get Hendriks, even if it's straight up, he's going to the White Sox. It's not like you traded him to the Dodgers or traded him to anybody in the National League for that matter, right? You traded him to the White Sox, who are a team that's probably, if they're going to lose their closer, they're probably not going to be much better. So, and they miserably failed the last 2 seasons when they were favored to win that Central, and they're losing their closer. So how much better they're going to be? And if Mauricio becomes a star, he's going to be on the south side of Chicago where nobody cares, and the White Sox aren't going to trade him anytime soon because he's cheap. The whole point of trading Hendriks is to get rid of that salary. So it's not like they're going to trade him because he's cheap and he's talented. And in 6 years, if he becomes a star, Cohen will just sign him anyway and bring him back, right? So you get a guy that will be your 8th inning guy, so that means you push everybody down. So that means, and this is what the more important thing, you got older guys at the top end of your rotation. You got a question mark in Senga. Quintana is solid. You got Carrasco solid as your 4 and 5. If you can throw Scherzer, Verlander, and Senga, remember, because you got to watch Senga's innings. 5 innings, 6 innings for the first couple of months, and you got a dominant bullpen like that, you don't need to worry about throwing these guys early on. 6, 7, go 6, 7, 8 innings, right? You don't need to. There's no need for it, especially if you got a lead. Let your bullpen go to use. You paid for this bullpen. You got this bullpen. Use them, right? I'm not saying overuse them, but the reason why in the first half it was, the bullpen, that was when the bullpen had a better second half last year than it did first half. And it was because the Mets used their starters to go deep in games in the beginning of the year. And because they didn't trust their bullpen as much. They started to trust it in the second half. But in the first half, they didn't trust it as much. And they used a lot of innings in these pitchers. And when you got Senga, who's never pitched more than 180 innings in his career and is new to pitching every 5th day, you got to watch his innings. And you got 2 other guys in Scherzer and Verlander that you need to be healthy and have the strength and have the power in their arms still at the end of the year when it really matters. Use your bullpen to your advantage, because if you get Hendriks, he'll be your 8th inning guy. That means Robinson would be your 7th. Ottavino can be your 6th, and you can do whatever else you want with the rest of your bullpen. So you don't have to go crazy with worrying about your bullpen, because you push everybody back, and that means your bullpen is even better. And that's the most important thing. And that's where we are with that. Again, I think you make that move. If they say Mauricio for Hendriks straight up, you got to make that trade. You don't need another bat in this lineup. You don't. Correa is that missing piece. Again, a 20 plus home run guy. If you put him a little bit deeper in the lineup behind Alonso, that 62, 63 RBIs that he had last year, excuse me, is going to be closer to 90 than it is 60. Easily. Because you don't get 63 RBIs batting second all year with the Twins by not being a run producer. Because you're getting the 8, 9, and sometimes leadoff hitters on base. And especially your 8 and 9 hitters, who are your worst hitters in your roster or on your lineup, getting on base occasionally. So that means when Correa had the opportunities with those men on, he got it done. You're not getting a lot of men on base when you're the leadoff hitter or the 2 hitter. Now, if you bring him to the 5th spot, he's going to be more of a run producer, what the Mets need. And you don't want to mess with the 1, 2, 3, 4 of Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, and Alonso, because it was lethal last year. I still believe to this day, if Marte did not get hurt, the Mets would have easily won the NL East, because they wouldn't have lost a lot of those stupid games. Because if you look at the games that we lost, there was a couple of games that we lost 2-1, 3-2. You know, not saying that Marte would have been the end all be all. We might have lost some of those games anyway, but I think we would have picked up a couple of more games in the month of September than we did. Because Marte was one of those spark plugs in the middle, in the early part of the lineup that really hurt this team. And I think it's important. And, you know, it's not a bad idea to have a lights-out bullpen. Again, this bullpen's going to save your starters as well. Again, you know, we got the oldest rotation in baseball, if you really look at it. You know, you got Correa in the middle of his 30s. You know, Scherzer late in his 30s. You got Verlander that's going to be 40. You got to protect these guys, especially early on. You know, of course, in games, you know, in like June or something like that, when you want to push it a little bit, all right, fine. But use your bullpen to your advantage. I'm not saying overuse your bullpen, because we saw what the Yankees did for many years when they had that dominant bullpen, and they basically taking all their starters out in the 5th inning. You don't want to do that every time. But to protect your starters that you're going to need late in the season, going into the playoffs, use your bullpen wisely, but you have them, right? You got Rayleigh, you got Robinson, you got Ottavino. You know, if you get Hendriks, you got Diaz. That's a bullpen that you can go to war with, no doubt. That's the most important thing here. Keeping the starters healthy, keeping the innings limited as much as possible. I'm not saying you have to do it every game, but you know what? When you got a 5-0 lead going into the 6th inning, there's no need to push Scherzer, Verlander, Senga, Carrasco, Quintana. Quintana is a workhorse. You can push him. But that's why you got that type of guy to pitch innings for you. But there's no point in pushing those guys when you got a 4-0 lead. What's the 4 or 5-0 lead? You don't, even a 3-0 lead. Don't push it, because you got this bullpen that all indications tell you is elite. Again, you never know what can happen. Again, bullpens are a hit and miss every year, no matter the names. Doesn't matter. They could be dominant one year, terrible the next. So we're not going to. Yes, I am a midget. Congratulations, Lewis, and you're a dick. Congratulations. I hope you have a Merry Christmas, you jerk. So that's the whole thing right there. And if you protect your starters, you're going to have them longer into the season. Because I can guarantee you Senga's probably not going to go past 5 innings probably for the first month of the season. I can almost guarantee you that. You got to protect him. You can't throw him 200 innings and expect him to be good because he's never done it in his career, and you don't want to get him hurt. All right, Joe said sign-in alert. Let's see. What do we got? All right, so free agent reliever Craig Kimbrell to the Phillies. Again, Craig Kimbrell was terrible last year with the Dodgers, and they couldn't wait to get rid of him. And again, Craig Kimbrell to me is basically Jansen. So, I mean, I know they got Iglesias. He'll probably be the closer. But Craig Kimbrell doesn't move the needle in the bullpen. So, it's not like the Phillies bullpen got better. So, again, that's the problem with the Phillies right now. Again, another reason why I think you got to trade for Hendriks is because you want to keep him away from Philadelphia, right? I'm sorry. I'm talking about Iglesias with Atlanta. Woof, that was wrong. Sorry. You have to keep these guys away from your division opponents. Yeah, I got to keep away from the Braves. Like, remember, Iglesias for the Braves last year, that trade came out of nowhere. That was an excellent trade by the Braves. That basically saved their asses. Even though they never made him the closer, they kept Jansen in there, even though it did hurt him because there was a couple of games they could have won last year that Jansen blew, specifically in St. Louis. I remember those ones. But Craig Kimbrell is not helping this bullpen. It's just not. He was terrible last year. Even if he's going to be a closer now. Like, clearly. I'm like, I don't know I'm not in depth with the Phillies roster in their bullpen, but I mean, it's pretty possible. I know you got a couple of guys in there that you could put him as your closer, but again, it's nothing to write home about with their bullpen. Kimbrell's not going to make a difference at all. Again, it's an arm in the bullpen. Kimbrell reminds me of Juris Familia. He's got a live arm. He's electric. He's a showman. And that's basically what he is. Again, it's a move for depth, clearly. I doubt they're going to use him as a closer, but they could. It's possible. Yeah, Jimmy. Interesting. But yes, guys. So the Phillies signed Craig Kimbrell for 1 year, $10 million. That's what the going rate is now for these guys, which is, again, everybody's getting overpaid this year. So check my Instagram. All right, so here we go. John Heyman reports Mets sent a private plane to transport Carlos Correa to New York City from Houston for the physical. First-class organization, or even better in this case. So a private jet, Cohen's private jet, the money plane, picks up Correa in Houston for his physical. So there you go, guys. So it's getting better and better by the minute. Well, Ethan, again, the last thing that we heard, again, 2 days ago, it could have been McCann and Vientos. That was what we heard. The White Sox liked Vientos, and McCann's best years of his career was with the White Sox. And the White Sox, apparently, according to the rumors, or at least reports, they still like McCann. That was a report. Of course, McCann got traded to the Orioles, and I'm assuming that Vientos probably is a possibility, but I don't think they're just going to take Vientos and give you Hendriks, even though you're taking on the money. They did say that they like Mauricio. Again, I do that. I do that in a heartbeat, to be honest with you. Mauricio really doesn't have anywhere to play in his team. He really doesn't anymore with the Correa signing. Oh, you sent me something on Instagram. Hold on. Yeah, so Correa has been liking all the Mets tweets, the Verlander tweet, Instagram page, and all that stuff. So again, it's pretty much done. Everything's probably set and ready to go. It's just a matter of when they're gonna announce everything and when the press conference is gonna be. So you ain't sending a private jet if this physical is not gonna be perfect. All right. So there we go. So with that said, Kimbrell just signed with the Phillies. Again, that's not. I think every move that the Mets made in the bullpen is better than the Kimbrel move. I mean, rarely was a better move than Kimbrel. Again, what you want to do, because look, you see the Phillies are working on their bullpen now. I don't think they're done. Now there's a. I mean, I think they have 2 lefties in their bullpen already. So I don't know if they're gonna go after Chafin. Maybe the Braves will. I'm not saying the Mets have to get Hendriks and Chafin. If they do, then I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, we didn't even talk about Drew Smith either. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy how many guys they have in that arm. But if the Mets do figure it out and sign Chafin and get Hendriks, I mean, do we need starters? Let's do a bullpen game. Jimmy, you're not moving McNeil to play second base. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't at all. You're not moving a rookie. You're not bringing up a rookie when you don't need the bat. You don't need it. It makes no sense. It's just it's important to realize, guys, you're not going to move your batting champion off second base to put him where? You put him in left field in a position where he might be good, but there's a big risk of getting him injured. And you can't lose McNeil in this lineup either. You can't. And again, if you watch McNeil last year, hold on, guys. Twitter's going crazy now. What the hell's going on? Hold on. All right, so the Mets are actively shopping Darren Ruff. Dodgers and Rays are the teams to watch. There we go. So that might be the other guy that might come off the roster to add Carlos Correa. And that's why it probably hasn't been official yet. And again, this puts into question right now, right away. If Darren Ruff gets traded to whoever and he gets off the roster, I think that just adds to it where your DHs are going to be Escobar and Vogelback, and Beatty's going to be on this team. That's an extra guy on the roster that you can throw on there. And he's going to platoon in left field. And that's basically it. And I think it's important to realize the fact that the Mets are doing everything they can. And again, I know you heard all the rumors. If you checked my community page, I put up a poll there. Obviously, it was overwhelmingly no that do you think Steve Cohen should sell the Mets? Like, I know it sounds like a stupid question, but there was actually people in the poll. There was about almost 100. About 60 or so that said yes. And again, they're probably not Met fans. That's fine. But if you're a fan that believes an owner who spends money and he didn't spend it recklessly, all right, everything the Mets did was strategic, right? They lost Jacob deGrom. They replaced him with Verlander. That needed to happen, right? They got Jose Quintana because they lost Chris Bassett and Walker. They had to get a fourth starter. Quintana's the guy. Senga replaces Bassett. These are signings that replace these guys. And the bullpen, we basically had no bullpen because they were all free agents. The Mets had to spend some money in the bullpen market. Was Correa a little excessive? But the Mets needed a right-handed bat. Again, if you had a choice between Mancini, Duvall, or Correa, which bat would you want in the lineup? I mean, it's common sense, all right? So there is not one signing that was, we always hear about it all the time. You can spend all the money you want, but it's how you spend the money. It's the reckless spending. This is not reckless spending at all. Right? Why haven't I heard anybody talk about the Phillies being reckless signing players? Right? They spent as much money over the last couple of years to have the lineup they have now that Cohen did in 1 year. And that was only signing Brandon Nimmo and Carlos Correa. It's not like they signed 5 guys for the lineup. Like, when people destroy me on this channel because of me saying that the Mets are going to sign about 5 or possibly 6 of the top 20 free agents, they laugh at me. Well, if you have the most free agents in all of baseball that came off your team, you can't replace them with all trades because that's almost impossible. You have to sign players to replace them or bring them back. Even if the Mets brought every player back that they had last year, DeGrom, Walker, Bassett, Nimmo, right? If they brought all those guys back, it was still going to reach an astronomical number from what those guys got. Remember, if you brought DeGrom back at $220 million or $189 million, whatever you want to use, the Mets took DeGrom's contract and got Senga, Verlander, and Quintana for that amount. So they would have got DeGrom. There would have been a pretty good chance they might have not signed Senga at that point. And again, even if they brought everybody back, they were still going to reach an astronomical number in their payroll. So that's why when people are like, oh, they're spending too much. Well, they would have had it done anyway just to bring back the whole team. So I just don't get it. Oh yeah, Greg, exactly. He knows. Look, Cohen's losing money at the moment, but if you saw the rumor, saw the report today that once the Correa's agreement was set and the Mets got him, the Mets sold $1 million in single ticket sales in one day on Wednesday, which was 2 days ago. Once Correa agreed to a contract with the Mets, the 12 years, $350 million, $1 million in single ticket sales was sold on Wednesday. And who knows how much on Thursday and today. You know what I did? I got season tickets. I bought a 20 game as well. Because you know why? Because I'm going to make a profit on that. You know damn well I'm selling those tickets because it's going to sell. You know that ridiculous stuff that we saw in Citi Field last year where late in the season in August and September, in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, where you were getting 20 to 25,000 fans, if that per night, it's a guarantee you're going to get at least 30 per night on weekdays. Easily. Like, it ain't even going to be a question because there's going to be so many day of game tickets sold on a random, you're getting two, we got a large Puerto Rican community in New York, especially Queens, that adore Lindor. You saw how much they love Lindor. And they bring Correa in there too. And then Senga, who is very popular in Japan. And all indications are the Mets are going to go crazy after Ohtani. Just imagine, you're going to get the Japanese population and the Puerto Rican population flocking to Citi Field just because of the players the Mets have. That's money right there. It's an investment. Cohen knows he's going to lose money the first couple of years. He even said that because the Wilpons basically destroyed this franchise money-wise. Oh, okay, guys. So Joe's friend is at the Christmas lights that they have in the parking lot at Citi Field. Correa and his wife and his son is there. So, again, he's here. So, there you go. He's spending Christmas in New York, which where else would you rather be? Right? So, yeah, Mike, and exactly. And you know what? He should challenge them. There is no reason why. And you know what, Mike? Let's be honest. Can you blame Met fans for not showing up over the last 10 years? How could you? You had an ownership that was a joke that never, every big free agent, it was guaranteed they weren't getting. A couple of years ago, before Cohen took over, Jed Lowry was their star free agent they brought in. Like, that doesn't excite you. Correa excites you. The trade for Lindor excites you. It takes time to build the confidence of your fan base again. All right? Check Yankee Stadium in the 80s when there was nobody at Yankee Stadium. Now they pack the house almost every night. You know why? Because they started to get more star players. They started to win consistently. Not just World Series, but they started to make the playoffs every year. It doesn't happen overnight. Right? Yankee Stadium was a ghost town in the 80s. for a long time. And that's why when people talked about the Mets took over the town in the late 80s, they did. Right? There was nobody at Yankee Stadium. Look at the old 80s videos of those games. There was nobody at Yankee Stadium. It was ghost town. But you bring in stars. You rejuvenize your fan base. You bring the confidence level back to your fan base. They're going to show up. All right? A couple of years ago, 2009, the reason why the Mets drew wasn't because of the team, was because it's a new ballpark. People want to see it. Right? It looked like a black hole when it opened up because of the black walls and everything was Dodger this, Dodger that, and black all over the place. So there you go. And again, Cohen needs to challenge them. There is no excuse anymore for Met fans to not show up, after work. Like even last year, you're like, all right, the Mets are good, they're really good and everything like that. But you're not, you're not going to come home from work at 5 o'clock and be like, should I just buy a ticket and go? Now there's, it gave you reasons to go. And even last year, I don't know what it was last year. Now, again, they drew a lot last year. It was pretty good attendance for the most part. But a lot of times, it was a weird feeling. I don't know if Met fans still didn't believe just yet. Like we still had missing pieces that we needed in this lineup on this team. The bullpen, we needed a bat. And right after the deadline, it seemed like the confidence level was still high, but it lost a little bit of the gas, basically. To when you expected to get that big bat and that bullpen arm that you needed, you didn't. And I guess it was demoralizing a little bit. And again, that's still not an excuse. Again, I was there, a lot. I mean, you guys know that I recorded it. I was there. I documented it all the time. You guys know when I was there. I was there a lot. And again, it was fun. I mean, even in game 3 against the Padres in the postseason in the wild card, like the whole left field section from like, if you know Citi Field, it was like 520, I would say 5, all the way into the 530 sections to the end and left field, into the foul territory up until left field. It was basically empty. Losing the division, getting a wild card spot, it took a lot out of the fan base. Again, no excuse. It's playoffs. You should be there. But even during the season, I think when that trade deadline happened and we basically was very underwhelmed with the trade deadline for the Mets, it kind of lowered the expectation, but it took a lot of energy out of the fan base a little bit, because that was the team that was good enough where if you put a bat in that lineup and maybe another bullpen arm, who knows what could have happened in September, even without Marte. They didn't do enough last year. Now you're going into the season where there might not actually be a weakness on this team. Now, again, during the season, somebody could get hurt. Somebody might not perform as well. So at the deadline, you might need, another starting pitcher, or you might need another bullpen arm because somebody's not performing to their capabilities. Somebody in the lineup might be bad. The DH spot in Escobar might be terrible. And no matter what the Mets do, it's not working. Maybe you need that bat anyway. Hey, Jay, that's not true. I'm going to tell you right now. These owners are so full of shit. Like, don't get me wrong, Jay. They will trade. I'm going to tell you right now. You don't think the White Sox will trade for Ronnie Mauricio to get rid of the salary of Hendriks? They would do that. Again, teams can do that. But I'm going to tell you right now, if the Mets have the best package, that's called collusion. And I'm going to tell you right now, if Major League Baseball looked into the Yankees and Mets thing with Aaron Judge, with Cohen and Hal Steinbrenner, owners they can collude all they want, but it's going to cost them, because they're going to get caught, because it's going to be obvious. And last year, it wasn't that the teams didn't want to trade with the Mets. The Mets didn't want to give any of their top prospects for anybody. You're not winning that year. And it wasn't because the teams didn't want to trade with them. Because when the Phillies got Robinson, they traded their 23rd and 24th best prospect. The Mets could have easily done that. Epler even said it after the trade deadline. He patted himself on the back saying, I'm very happy that we didn't have to give up any of our top 25 prospects. What? How do you not want to make the best team, one of the best teams in baseball, better? So it wasn't about the teams didn't want to trade with them. It wouldn't have been a problem. Again, you bring the best package up, owners are not going to care, especially the bad teams who are already cheap as hell anyway. James, I honestly don't care. If the Mets go 93 wins, it's going to get them into the playoffs. You get into the playoffs. I mean, the Phillies won 87 games last year. What did that matter, right? They got to the World Series. Again, too many people are focused on the games, all right? I know the Mets are, the second favorites to win the World Series. You know, I'm assuming the Mets are probably their win total is probably at 100, maybe 99 wins. They might put the total wins at. But again, that doesn't matter. I think people look too much into that. And James, the schedule won't be tougher because the Mets are playing the Braves and the Phillies less this year because of the balanced schedule. You know what? Let me play more of the Central. Give me more of the Cubs. Give me more of the Pirates. Give me more of the Giants. Give me more of the Diamondbacks. It's a balanced schedule now. So you're not playing 19 times in your division. So that means, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we're playing the Phillies and the Braves 14 times. I think we're playing 5 games less. So you don't have to worry about 10 games from the teams that are in your division. So that means more of the Pirates, bring them over, right? The Yankees benefited from a terrible American League last year. The Astros did too. And I agree. HMJ, 100%. I was in section 519. It was a weird feeling. It got electric earlier in the game, but right away it was dead. Like right away. No, Justin, that wasn't the reason why. Again, guys, common sense will get you a long way. Common sense will get you a long way. Again, you're not listening to what Epler said last year, guys. Epler said after the trade deadline, when he had his little interview after the trade deadline, he specifically said he was not willing to give any top 25 prospects to add on to that team last year. He said that. You're not getting anybody if you're not going to give any of your top 25 prospects. It's not happening. And on top of that, the Mets had the most free agents that were key players on their team last year. The most. 4 guys in their rotation were free agents. 3 guys in their bullpen. And Brandon Nimmo. How else are you can't trade to replace all those players. You have to spend money. That's why. It has nothing to do with that. I'm going to tell you right now. If the Angels decide to trade Ohtani at the deadline, if the Mets have the best package, he's coming to the Mets. There is no team that's going to take a less package to better their future because they don't like Cohen. It's not going to happen. That is just reporters talking nonsense because they have no stories. Pay attention, guys. It's not that hard. It's common sense. Go back at the deadline. If the deadline was like, right before 4th of July? Go back to the interview after the deadline. Epler specifically said he was not willing to give any of his top 25 prospects because it took the Phillies to get their 23rd and 24th ranked prospect to get David Robinson. Sorry. The Mets could have done that. Epler didn't want to. That was the reason why. The Mets traded Holdeman, which they needed in their bullpen, for Vogelback. So what's the problem? If that was the case, that was the dumb trade. I guarantee you could have traded Holdeman for Robinson, and it would probably been a better deal than what the Phillies gave. And well, Mike, I said that all year. The Braves weren't very good against teams over 500 all year. All year. I said that, but the Brave fans don't want to believe it. Again, they don't want to admit it, but it was true. Like, yes, they played okay against above 500 teams, but they didn't play great. They beat up on a lot of teams. They swept a lot of series. Again, it was the Mets' fault in September for not beating those teams. So that's on the Mets there. It wasn't the Braves winning the division. The Mets lost it. If they would have took care of the easy schedule in September, the Braves would have been a second place team. And that's all on the Mets. Jay, I don't know what it was last year, but it was probably, guys like the Ramirez's of the world. Oh God, geez, there's so many. See, it changes over all the time. It changes a lot, but again, even if they weren't better than the Phillies 23rd or 24th prospect, the point is the Mets could have got a bullpen arm or two that was better than Givens if they were willing to give it up. They didn't do it. Epler told you that. He specifically said that, guys. You got to listen. Again, that's why I was more mad at the fact that they didn't do anything. It wasn't that the teams didn't want to trade, right? That was the whole thing, right? That people even say, no, because the Pittsburgh Pirates owner hates Steve Cohen. He voted no to bring him in as owner. He traded with him. No problem. You know why? Because you gave him a young, controllable, cheap player for Vogelback. They're going to do that trade 10 times out of 10. Right? We traded, right? The San Francisco Giants owner, right, was one of the guys that wasn't very happy with Steve Cohen, right? He was one of the guys that didn't vote yes for Steve Cohen, right? Davis and 3 minor leaguers for Ruff. They weren't taking that deal because of Cohen. They did it. You see? Come on. It's not that hard. Ramon, Pablo Lopez can't even. No. There's no point of getting Pablo Lopez. And you can get a lot more for Beatty than Pablo Lopez. Yeah, committee, exactly. But again, that was Epler that didn't want to deal with J.D. Davis. He wanted to get him out. Remember, that wasn't his guy. That was an Alderson guy. That was a Brody Van Wagenen move. Right? And to take on J.D. Davis, he gave 3 more prospects away. So again, the stupidity of Epler in that aspect of giving one of your bullpen arms that was counted on a little bit. When Juiceman went down, Haldeman was a big part of that bullpen. He traded them for Vogelback. You telling me that Haldeman couldn't have been traded for Robinson, which was probably more of a necessity at that time? Come on. Again, guys, it's not that point. Well, Stevie, that was the point too. The Mets didn't really want Contreras, and the Cubs were trying to force it. But again, if the Mets had the Mets had the guys that they traded for Ruff and Vogelback, and they could have used it for Robinson, they probably would have got it done. And I think that was the bigger problem, Stevie. They waited too long on that Cubs situation because we heard that for a week during the trade deadline, right? Contreras, Cubs, Robinson, Cubs, Mets, right? I think they focused on that too much, and it bit him in the ass at the end because Michael Givens, if you guys don't remember, was a last-second deal before the deadline was up. So Epler screwed up in that part. It wasn't about they didn't want to trade with the Mets because the Mets made trades already, right? Why would the Pittsburgh Pirates make trade with the Mets? Why would they? If they don't like the owner, they wouldn't have, even if it was for only Vogelback. Why? Because the owner was like, "Ooh, you mean we can pay $600,000 to hold him in for a couple of years, and we have team control? God forbid we pay $2 million for Vogelback." Like they literally penny pinch in Pittsburgh, guys. When I was in Pittsburgh in 2021, if you ever been to PNC, they have a lot of restaurants and bars around the area. It's pretty cool. Got to go there, right? I was at a bar and grill. At the bar, drinking a beer, eating some food, talking to Pirates fans. And they kept on saying it over and over again. The Pirates owner is a billionaire. He's not a 100 millionaire. He's a billionaire. He's got a ton of money. right? He used a lot of his money to build PNC Park. It wasn't city money. He built that park on his own. They even said it. All the players they lost that could have probably made their team better. Listen, guys, the Pirates could have signed Aaron Judge and Carlos Correa and probably still have a payroll under $100 million. Why wouldn't they do that? Because they count every cent on those teams. You don't think they can sell out PNC Park? You know how passionate of a fan base Pittsburgh has? Have you watched the Penguins? Have you watched the Steelers? They're the same fans. They show up. They will. But why support an owner that doesn't put any money into the team? He pocketed every penny he got from revenue sharing. Every penny. He did not put it into the team. How can you support an owner like that? That's it. That's the whole point. And it comes back to the whole fact is that owners get mad, but yet they're pocketing the money that they're making from revenue sharing and, pay the teams that go over the luxury tax, paying all these penalties. That's going in the pockets of the smaller markets that are not over the luxury tax. I mean, you have to understand the economics in it too. It's crazy. So, with that said, guys, we talked about everything. Correa, we just found out, flew down in Cohen's private jet from Houston to New York. According to Joe's friend, they had that Christmas light show thing at Citi Field's parking lot. Apparently, he saw Correa and his wife and his son. So he's there. Physical is probably, if he didn't do most of it, it's probably happening tomorrow. I know it's Christmas Eve, but they're probably doing it. Who knows? Or even if they do the physical on Monday, it will be settled. Tuesday will probably be the press conference. And with that said, Correa, by next week, will be official jersey, press conference, all that fun stuff. McCann traded to the Orioles. Hendriks trade is still possible. We just heard recently of the report that the White Sox are looking into really trying to get Mauricio from the Mets. Again, if it's Mauricio for Hendriks straight up, there's no doubt about it. Mauricio is not helping you on his team probably at all for the next 2 years. Most likely. You trade him for Hendriks and make your bullpen even freaking better. And that protects your rotation a hell of a lot more, especially with the oldest rotation in baseball. You can use your bullpen to protect the innings that this pitching staff could throw, but you want to limit them, and that's why you got that bullpen ready to go. Not saying that Mauricio can't be a star, and I don't like Mauricio. I do. But the Mets foobarred that a couple of years ago when they signed Lindor. They should have moved Mauricio to a position that they could have used him in the future. And they didn't do it because they didn't want to move him to a position that he wasn't comfortable in. If he performed badly in that new position, his value would have went down. Don't think for a second it's not the case. Mauricio is the perfect trade asset that the Mets can have. And if you can get one of the better closers in baseball to be your setup man and close games every now and then to give Diaz days off, it's perfect. It's a no-brainer. Justin, you can do that, but you get fired as a GM tomorrow. So, Hendriks trade, check. Keep on looking out for that. I wouldn't be surprised if that heats up a little bit more after the holiday. Bullpen arm, if you can get Hendriks, maybe the Mets are done. Or maybe if the Mets can't land Hendriks, they go after Chafin, and that kind of solidifies your bullpen, and you go to war with that. Once again, guys, everybody have a great holiday. Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Christmas, whatever you celebrate. If you don't celebrate anything, have a good weekend. I will be back in color, I hope. On Monday, another Mets Hot Stove Live. We'll get a lot more information with the Correa thing probably being official at that point. Maybe the Mets will make another trade or another sign-in to solidify that bullpen. And we'll be back on Monday after the holidays. So I'll see you then. Everybody, stay safe, stay warm. This whole country is basically cold right now. So everybody, have a good night. Merry Christmas. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa. All that fun stuff, guys. Everybody, have a good night. As always, let's go Mets. See you next time, guys. Have a good night.
You'll find a Mets fan. Let's go. This is a Mets cheer for all your Mets here.